Which military carbine was the best of the Second World War? Let's find out. World War II was the largest, deadliest conflict in human history, and it forever changed the face of warfare. In the middle of all that chaos, one category of weapon stood out for its speed, portability, and versatility on the battlefield: the carbine. Carbines are shorter, lighter rifles for troops that need firepower without the bulk, like paratroopers, vehicle crews, and support units. And in a lot of ways, these handy little firearms outclass their full-size battle rifle counterparts. Today we're covering every major military carbine from World War II and ranking them on an S through D tier list to find out which ones reign supreme. I think some of these rankings might surprise you. Let's get into it. The first country on our list will be France. And although the French military adopted a standard short rifle in the MAS 36 prior to World War II, their carbines most certainly still saw combat. This is a MLE M16 Berthier, and would have been the most common Berthier carbine in World War II. The M16 variant was a World War I update to the Berthier, in which they adapted this firearm to accept a 5-round M-block clip. Previously, Berthiers would have been 3-round rifles. You can always spot an M16 from the extended magazine on the bottom here. You won't see that with the 3-round variants. The Berthier carbine is extremely light and handy, coming in at just over 37 inches long and weighing just over 7 pounds. They have an older style ladder type sight, but the front sight on the M16 Berthier is particularly thick, making the sights on this rifle very quick to acquire and pretty darn good, actually. Sure, by the time World War II kicked off, the Berthier was already a very dated design. In the world of carbines, though, the M16 is still pretty nice, although I do think it falls sort of middle of the pack, and for that reason, this rifle is coming in solidly at C tier. Although the M16 would have been the most common Berthier in World War II, the older 1892 3-shot Berthier no doubt saw some use as well. It was most likely still in service with some French colonial troops, and almost certainly saw use by the French resistance, who would use basically anything they could get their hands on. If the 5-shot Berthier is C tier, I most certainly think the 3-shot Berthier would be D tier, and we're not done with French Berthiers just yet, because there is a very unique World War II variant that we have to talk about. This is a full-length long rifle, 1907-15, and of course, it can't be included on a carbines tier list. Just prior to the Second World War, however, France experimented with a conversion of these big old long rifles to a shorter, more manageable carbine version. They called those short rifle conversions 1907-15 M34s. And the cool thing about the M34 is they also rechambered those rifles from the older 8mm Lebel to the updated round of the MAS 36, 7.5 by 54 French. They were changed from M-block clip loading to stripper clip loading. However, the stripper clip they used was apparently different than the stripper clip of the MAS 36. Although certainly shorter and more handy than a full-size long rifle, the M34 was still pretty large in terms of carbines, coming in at over 42 inches, and they weren't the lightest, weighing over 8 pounds. So even though they underwent some pretty serious improvements, I still think the M34 Berthier is a C-tier carbine. Imperial Japan's primary entry into our list will be the awesomely light and handy Type 38 carbine. These little guys come in at 7.3 pounds and 38 inches long. They are, of course, bolt action using a modified Mauser action and are loaded with a really solid Mauser-style 5-round stripper clip. One of the biggest positives going for the Type 38 is the round that it shoots. These are chambered in 6.5 Japanese, which is an intermediate power cartridge, and that's a very important factor when we're talking about tiny little rifles. A small, light firearm is a lot easier on the shooter if it's not using a giant overpowered cartridge, and 6.5 Japanese is the perfect pairing for this tiny little rifle. They have a ruggedly reliable, quick and smooth action, and decent enough ladder-style sights. All in all, it comes together to make a pretty impressive carbine package, so I would say the Japanese Type 38 is coming in at B tier. Japan does have another carbine that I must mention in the video. However, unfortunately, I don't have one in my collection, and that'll be the Type 44, which was originally designed for mounted troops. The Type 44 possesses basically all the positives that we talked about with the Type 38, but it has the addition of a front-mounted folding bayonet, and somehow Japan managed to integrate that large folding metal bayonet and only increase the weight by a few ounces. A bayonet is cool, but it doesn't really improve the effectiveness over the Type 38, so on our tier list, the Type 44 is also coming in at B. The British Empire fielded one of the most recognizable and famous carbines of the Second World War. That was, of course, the number 5 Mark I Lee Enfield Jungle Carbine. The Jungle Carbine has the same excellent bolt action of the number 4 Enfield. It was chambered in the same powerful .303 British cartridge, had an impressive 10-round magazine, and some of the best aperture-style sights of World War II. All of that in a package maximized for weight and size savings. The Jungle Carbine comes in at just over 7 pounds and just shy of 40 inches. Even with the big old flash hider, .303 British is a bit of a stout cartridge for such a lightweight rifle, but between the sights, magazine capacity, and overall handiness of this rifle, the Jungle Carbine ranks extremely high on the list. I most certainly believe this World War II legend deserves to come in at A tier, but with the issues of pretty uncomfortable recoil and apparent wandering zero problems, I can see an argument against it. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Next up, we have a 3-for-1 with Austria, Hungary, and Bulgaria. During the Second World War, each of those countries primarily used Mannlicher-style straight pull rifles and carbines. There are quite a few variants of these straight pull style bolt action carbines, but regardless of individual features, they're all pretty similar, coming in at about 7.5 pounds, just shy of 40 inches in length, really a decent standard carbine size. However, there is a major downside to the World War II variants of these guns. This is 8x56R, the round these rifles are chambered in. 8x56R is an extremely powerful cartridge, and a powerful cartridge in a lightweight rifle leads to really heavy recoil, and the felt recoil of these carbines is no joke. It is an overpowered cartridge for these small rifles. Original World War I M95 carbines had a really nice action. However, the World War II update to the new cartridge caused a lot of these rifles to have far worse actions because the bolts weren't always matched to the rifle the same way they were originally. So they suffer a little bit on speed and reliability of the action and loading. In the carbine specific version, they have okay ladder style sights, but all in all, I would say the World War II Mannlicher M95 carbine is a C tier firearm. I will make a quick distinction for carbines that started their life as a full length rifle and were updated to a shorter, lighter, handier version for World War II. These carbines retain their original long rifle style sights, and in my experience, this does affect shooting performance. If the purpose-built carbine was C tier, a cut-down conversion rifle is D tier in my opinion. While we're discussing Mannlicher actions, we have to mention the Netherlands. The Dutch M95 carbine is a rifle often forgot. There are once again a ton of individual versions of these carbines, but the Dutch M95s are impressively lightweight and handy, just over 37 inches in length and weighing 7.4 pounds. They were also fed with 5-round Mannlicher style clips, but they were chambered in a lighter recoiling 6.5mm cartridge, making them a more controllable firearm. Their action was smooth enough, and they had fair enough sights, but overall they were already outdated World War I technology in World War II, and they suffer because of that. Despite some serious positives with the Dutch M95, I still think they come in at C tier. And we're not done with Mannlichers yet, because Greece's entry to the list is their Mannlicher Schonauer 1903-14. They're pretty dang rare, but there are carbine variants of the Greek 1903, both converted from full-length long rifles and purpose-made carbines. The Greek 1903-14 and 1903-1430 carbines come in pretty heavy at just about 8 pounds. They're a little longer than some of the others we've covered, coming in at 40.4 inches, but they have a super interesting internal rotary magazine system that no other rifle uses really, and they're chambered in a fairly low recoiling 6.5mm cartridge. People say that unique rotary magazine is smooth to reload with the Greek clips. I still can't see them ranking any higher than C tier, however. Now time for the country that was one of the most prominent users of carbines in World War II, Italy. Italian Carcano carbines are abundant, and there are a ton of individual models. We have two main types though, the 1891 Moschetto with folding bayonet and the TS carbine sans folding bayonet. All of these rifles have the same Carcano bolt action and are reloaded with a 6-round M-block clip that completely fits down into the rifle. There are two individual chamberings for Carcanos though, the original 6.5 by 52mm and the 7.35 by 51mm cartridge. Bayonet-equipped Moschetto Carcanos weigh 7 pounds, but our TS carbines come in a little lighter at 6.4 pounds. All Carcano carbines are a very short 36 inches in length, so when it comes down to it, despite their differences, they're all pretty similar. I do believe the original 1891 Moschetto is the worst Carcano in the lineup though. The sights pretty much suck, the bayonets are awkward and a little floppy, and despite good magazine capacity and a pretty light recoiling cartridge, in my experience, they're pretty lousy shooters. I think the 1891 Moschetto is a D tier carbine. If we upgrade a little bit to the Moschetto version of the M38 Carcano though, we get a much better rear sight, and for that I would put the M38 Moschetto at C tier. I like the TS carbines a good bit more than the Moschettos, so even though the sights are still pretty poor on the 1891 TS, I think it's a C tier rifle as well. In my opinion, the absolute best World War II Carcano carbine though is the M38 TS carbine because it has those better M38 style sights. Everything else on the M38 TS is pretty much the same, but I do think the sight improvement is enough to move this one up to B tier. Now let's get into many people's favorite, the Soviet Union and the Mosin Nagant. This is a M38 Mosin carbine, the quintessential Russian short rifle. Like any Mosin Nagant, our carbines are bolt-action firearms. They are chambered in the powerful 7.62 by 54R cartridge and are reloaded with 5-round stripper clips. The M38 here is 40 inches in length and comes in at a reasonable 7.5 pounds. They got the sizing right, but I think the main downside for this firearm is ammunition related. The 7.62 by 54R cartridge is really stout for a small firearm, and the clips these rifles are reloaded with pretty much suck. The M38 has excellent tangent style battle sights zeroed at 100 meters, and even the front sight is a nearly perfect hooded post. I think it's pretty safe to say that despite ammunition and clip issues, the Soviet M38 is a B tier carbine. The M38 isn't the only Russian carbine in town though. We can't forget the M44 with its side folding bayonet. As far as the sights, action, and ammunition goes, the M44 and the M38 are virtually identical. The folding bayonet of the M44, however, gives it a whole lot of cool factor. Unfortunately, this bayonet comes with some added weight, and the whole point of a carbine is to be light and handy. The M44 is the heaviest carbine we've covered so far, coming in at 9 pounds, and that does hurt it in the rankings. If the M38 was B tier, the only place I can stick the M44 is down a notch at C tier. Now this one might be controversial. I can hear the angry comments rolling in already, but this is a Russian SKS 45 carbine, and it's going to be included in the list. Generally, the SKS is not considered a World War II firearm. It's more of a Cold War gun, but the SKS 45 did get field trials late in World War II and saw actual action on the ground in the Eastern Front. Straight out of the gate, the SKS has an advantage on every gun we've talked about so far, and that's its semi-automatic action. It's not limited by the speed of working that bolt action, and it's fed with a 10-round stripper clip of the intermediate cartridge 7.62 by 39mm. The smaller cartridge means less recoil than a lot of the firearms we've talked about, and the 10-round capacity is superior to most that we've covered. It's not exactly light, coming in at 8.5 pounds, and the overall length is pretty much at the maximum I will allow for a carbine, coming in just over 40 inches. The SKS has great sights though, and is overall a far better weapon system than anything we've looked at so far. If we're talking about carbines in the Second World War, the SKS-45 is most certainly S tier. This is a Czech VZ-24. It was the primary infantry arm of Czechoslovakia's military and Romania's military in World War II. It does not belong on a carbine tier list though, because it's just too darn big. Czechoslovakia did have a very interesting variant of the VZ-24 that was a carbine, however, and that was the VZ-33. The VZ-33 was an impressively light 6.8 pounds, a very short 37.4 inches, had a 5-round magazine capacity, and had the same excellent Mauser 98 action of the VZ-24. It was an awesomely light and handy rifle, with one major downside: it was still chambered in full power 8mm Mauser. As we spoke about earlier, small rifle plus big round equals big recoil, and the VZ-33 really beat the shooter to death. So I think it's pretty safe to say that the Czech VZ-33 was C tier. Although around in World War II, the VZ-33 really didn't see widespread military use. There was a variant of that rifle adopted by Germany though, and that's known as the Gewehr 3340, or the mountain carbine. Germany did put standard VZ-33s in service, but with the 3340, they made some changes to make it more of their own. They reinforced the stock, especially in the butt plate area, and they actually increased the length a little bit to 39.4 inches. Those changes resulted in the weight increasing to 7.6 pounds, and in turn made the 3340's recoil more manageable than the original VZ-33. I wish I had one of those pretty darn rare rifles in my collection. Sadly, I don't, but as far as ranking goes, I think the Gewehr 3340 deserves to be B tier. Now, I'm already well aware that several of you are going to be very upset that I did not discuss the German Carbiner 98K in this video. I mean, the K98K literally has carbine in the name. Why is it not on the carbine tier list? It's an awesome gun, but despite being called a carbine, it's actually a standard short rifle, and I have already included it in my tier list, ranking every standard service rifle of World War II. If you would like to see how the Car 98K stacks up against the competition, you can check out the video I have linked here and down in the description. The Scandinavian countries Denmark, Norway, and Finland all had something in common in World War II, and that was use of Swedish firearms. Even though Sweden remained neutral in World War II, their Mousers did not stay at home. Neighboring Finland used both Swedish rifles and carbines in the Winter War and Continuation War. Danish resistance fighters were supposedly issued Swedish M38s towards the end of the war during the liberation efforts, and even Norway had some Swedish Mousers circulating in inventory. This is a Swedish M9638, and this particular firearm would have started its life as a full-length long rifle, but was later updated to a standard short rifle length. Now, the M9638 and standard Swedish M38 are not exactly carbines. They come in at 44 inches long, making them a standard short rifle length. But since there were no carbine versions of the M38, and a lot of M38s were cut down from a longer rifle, I do think I'm going to sneak this one into the list. Swedish Mousers are chambered in the excellent 6.5 by 55mm cartridge. They're reloaded with really great Mauser-style clips, and Swedish Mousers in general are considered some of the highest quality, most accurate Mauser firearms ever produced. If I'm ranking the M38 and the M9638 on a list of carbines though, its size does hurt it, so at best I would say they are C tier. There were, however, true Swedish Mauser carbines used in World War II in the M94 and M94-14. They mainly saw use in Finland, and these small rifles came in at 37 inches in length and weighing 7.5 pounds. They have the same excellent Swedish Mauser action and are chambered in the same 6.5mm cartridge. Really smooth reloading with those nice Swedish clips and good enough sights. The M94 and M94-14 are coming in at B tier. If I can sneak a standard short rifle into the list, I don't see why I can't squeeze a pistol in there. In World War II, China actually used significant numbers of C96 Mauser broom-handled pistols. And of course, the C96 is issued with a holster that doubles as a stock. I would argue that a stocked broom-handled Mauser is very close to a carbine, and so it's making the list. Even with that stock, they weigh a laughable 4.2 pounds, the lightest firearm we've talked about yet. Come in at a minuscule 25.5 inches. They are semi-automatic, have 10-round magazine capacity, and are reloaded with stripper clips. For a pistol, they even have pretty darn good tangent-style sights. The C96 is truly the original PCC, and despite that pistol cartridge, I think it ranks at B tier on our carbine tier list. And I think we'll wrap things up with the good old USA. This is the iconic M1 carbine, really the perfect bridge between pistol and rifle, the role that a carbine is supposed to fill. It is the lightest weight, most handy true carbine we've discussed, coming in at 5.2 pounds, an extremely short overall length at 35.6 inches. It is, of course, semi-automatic and is the only firearm on our list fed with a detachable box magazine. Extremely modern for World War II. It has an impressive 15-round standard capacity and ridiculously nice aperture-style sights. And on top of that, the .30 carbine cartridge the rifle is chambered in is very light recoiling, but still powerful enough to be effective. The M1 carbine basically takes all the positive aspects we've spoken about in this video and combined them together into one nearly perfect carbine. People might say I have a US firearms bias, and who knows, maybe I do, but when it comes down to it, and we look at all the features, it's hard to argue against the M1 carbine coming in at S tier. I really do believe the M1 is the best carbine of the Second World War. It was an extremely modern design and perfectly filled that carbine role. So that was the list, S through D rankings for every carbine of the Second World War. If you guys enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit it with a thumbs up to help it out with the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my future firearms content. And let me know down in the comments what you thought about the video and my rankings. Did I get it right or did I bugger it all up? And was there anything important that I forgot? There usually is. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I truly appreciate each and every viewer out there, and I will catch you in the next video. See you then. Peace.